Also important to note with the Enduro kit, the Enduro transmission uses 48 pitch spur and pitch. Hey guys, welcome back to Revolution XRC and welcome to part 3 of my Element Builders Kit build. In this part we're going to be tackling the gearbox, also known as the Stealth X transmission of the Element Enduro. And for this step you'll need bags 4 and the grease from bag 11. You can use this grease or you can use a grease of your choice. A lot of the plastic parts do come on sprues, and I found that a nice way to cut these parts off the sprues is to use a side cutter like this Tamiya side cutter, and I'll put a link to this in the description below as well. It's nice because it's got a flat side and you can precisely cut it off to minimize the flashing. Now before we continue on with gate 1 of the transmission or gearbox build, we'll go over the gear sets that are available in the Stealth X transmission. So the Stealth X transmission has 3 gear sets. The first one is the 2852, so 52 tooth here and 28 tooth here, and the 2 overdrive options are 2753 and 2654. Now out of the box they give you the roughly 6% option, which is the 2753, and the 12% option, which is 2654. They do not include the option for no overdrive, which would mean that they would give you an extra set of 2852. And the way it works is the transmission has 2852 on one side and one of these overdrive options on the other side. So with no overdrive you would have 2 sets of 2852s. You would need to buy an additional set of 2852 gears to have no overdrive, and if you do want overdrive then you're going to have to choose between one of these 2 sets. So for this build I'm going to choose the 12% option, so I'm going to use the 2654 set right there, and I will not be using the 2753. And Element makes it pretty easy because it's clearly labeled on the gears, 26/54, 26/54, so you know which gears go together. And here, let me hold it up just so you can get a closer look. For gate 1 of the gearbox build, you'll need these following parts. You'll also need thread lock. For these gears, you'll need one of the standard gear, which is the 52, and your choice of either the 53 or 54 overdrive gear. First, you'll need this piece, and you'll need to screw in the overdrive gear, which is either the 53 or 54, not the 52. So the overdrive gear will be screwed into this piece right here. Now you'll need the 2.5 by 10s. And that completes gate 1. Now before we continue with gate 2 of this transmission build, I just want to talk about these two top shafts right here. These are the shafts that your spur gear attaches to. Now you'll see there's a difference in the location of this gear right here. Now if you have the spur gear towards the rear of the chassis, then you're going to want to have this particular shaft with the gear towards the back end of this shaft. If you're going to have the spur gear facing towards the front of the chassis, you're going to want to have this one right here where the gear is a little bit more forward. So in this case, I'm going to stick with the stock configuration where the spur gear is towards the rear of the chassis, so I'll be using the shaft with the gear towards the back, or towards the this end of the shaft, where the spur gear is here and this one's closer to the end, the opposite end. Once again, this is the one that you use where the spur gear is facing towards the front of the chassis, and this is the one that you use where the spur gear is facing towards the rear of the chassis. For gate 2, you'll need the following. Now you'll want to pay attention to which direction that these gears are facing. You're going to want this end, this thick end right here, to face towards the front of the chassis, or actually the opposite end of the spur gear. Well, before I put this in, oops, I'm gonna grease the gears. Now also pay attention to this gear set here. Make sure that they match with the appropriate gears in the gearbox. So the standard gear set, or 2852, is the one that I put towards the away side from the spur gear. So you'll have to make sure that the 28 tooth gear is this facing the same way. Oops. Lost a pinner. Give it a few spins to spread the grease. And spin it in both directions. Once again, give it a few spins to spread the grease. And it completes gate 2 of this transmission build. Before we move on to gate 3 of this part of the series, I just wanted to let you guys know to make sure not to over tighten these housing screws here, because that will cause drag in your transmission. So do not over tighten them. Leave enough, tighten it just enough to put the tabs together, but do not over tighten it to the point where the transmission doesn't spin freely. For gate 3, you'll need the following pieces. Now I am missing a washer and I can't find it right now, but that's okay. You only need this washer when you mount the motor. You'll also need a motor of your choice. Here I have a Holmes Hobbies Crawlmaster Sport 550 12 turn. I'll put a link to this in the description below. I'm not sure if I'll go with this yet, but I'm just putting this here just to let you know that you'll need a motor in this step. And these pieces are for mounting the motor. I will not be mounting the motor right now, so I will not be using them, but you'll need these for this step. Once again, I am missing a washer that I haven't found yet. Now the Stealth X transmission does not have slipper pads because it's fully locked. And once again, if you were to put your motor on in this step, you would put the motor like this and use these parts to screw in the motor. And that completes gate 3. For gate 4 and the final step in this transmission build, you'll need these screws and a pinion of your choice. Now, I didn't have stock. The manual states to use a 18 tooth 48 pitch pinion, but right now I've only got a 14 tooth 48 pitch pinion on hand. But that's okay because I want that lower speed control, so I kind of want to gear down anyway. This one in particular is from ProTech RC. It's an A-Main brand, and I'll put a link to this in the description below. They even include a little piece of paper here to kind of help you with your gear mesh. As you may know, the paper method is a pretty popular way of testing gear mesh. I personally just do it by hand, just to see if there's a little wiggle room, but if you're comfortable with using the paper method, they do include a piece of paper for that. Also important to note with the Enduro kit, the Enduro transmission uses 48 pitch spur and pinion. This makes the transmission a lot quieter, but on the other hand, some people like 32 pitch spur and pinions because they're stronger. For me, I found that the 48 pitch works just fine. I don't know if you're one of those people who like to put a ton of power into their transmission, and if you do so, you may want to consider changing the spur and pinion out to a 32 pitch setup. But for me, I'm going to stick with the 48 pitch setup. Alright, here I have the pinion installed, and you can see that there's a little wiggle there, and that's how I like my mesh. Alright, now we're ready to put the transmission on the chassis, and once again I've set it up so that the spur is facing towards the rear, so you'll want it on this side. Now this is very important because if you do this wrong, you can mess up the gears inside your transmission. There are 4 screws that you need to mount the transmission to the chassis. There are 2 3x14 countersunk screws, and there are 2 3x8 countersunk screws. The longer 3x14 countersunk screws are in the middle of the skid. The shorter 3x8 countersunk screws go towards the frame rail. So just make sure the longer screws are in the middle and the shorter ones are on the outside. If you do it the other way around, you're gonna have these screws go right into your gears, and that's what you don't want. And that completes gate 4 of the transmission build. This also concludes this part of the build series, the gearbox or transmission. We've put together the Stealth X transmission and we've added it to the chassis. And that's about it for this part of the build series. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe and hit that notification bell for the next part of my Element Enduro Builder's Kit build series. Thanks for watching.